Don Lehn, chillTV. We are live at the Twisted Thistle Restaurant with Diane Janzen, former city councillor, now in the running as the possible next Liberal candidate provincially for the riding of Chilliwack, and maybe going to Victoria. We don't know. Anything could happen in the next couple of months. First off, from your past history politically, why would you want to get back into the fray?
Well, you know, I love Chilliwack and I love British Columbia, and I think what I can do is make a contribution. We know that Chilliwack is the fastest growing community in British Columbia, and with that come a whole range of challenges. So that includes things like healthcare. We know that 25,000 Chilliwack people do not have a doctor. We know that Chilliwack wants us to do something very positive about affordable housing and the downtown, for example. So these are some of the issues that I want to represent Chilliwack in, and I feel a great passion for this community. I'm prepared to roll up my sleeves and do some very hard work and get things done.
The standing MLA, John Martin, is now into his second term here. The obvious question, what can you do and bring to the table that is better than John Martin?
Well, I want to thank John Martin for the years of service that he has, and I'm not going to get into any kind of a discussion about you know, I don't like throwing mud. I don't think that that's important. I think what is important is what I can bring to the table. I can bring a lot of experience to the table. I understand that you do not get anything done by yourself, so I'm prepared to work with the school board, with UFE, with the city, with the business community, with social service agencies, and I think my collaboration and my records speak for itself.
Going after any incumbent can be an uncomfortable situation. Have you had any conversations with the Liberal leader, Andrew Wilkinson, about trying to get the Liberal nomination away from John Martin?
I've had no discussions with Andrew Weaver.
Okay. When it comes to memberships, and that is always a big thing that is a driving force, what is there a magic number? Is there a number you're looking for? Is there a number that you want to match that John Martin has?
So generally what the party looks for is 1% of eligible voters. That would be around 400. And so that is my target, is 400 memberships in the Chilliwack riding. And Chilliwack is kind of divided in half.
Have you had any other pushback politically within the Liberal Party? And I point to the situation that Darryl Plecas went through in Abbotsford. Bruce Banman, the former Abbotsford mayor, now has the nomination for Abbotsford South. Have you run into any other resistance?
No, I haven't. In fact, I've spent a lot of time. I've been in farms in Greendale and gas stations in Yarrow and restaurants in Sardis and in downtown businesses. And the response that I've received is very, very positive. So I am very optimistic about my chances.
This coming on the heels of the throne speech and the budget. There was something that came up in the throne speech. It was not addressed in the budget. That was a hint at some type of rapid transit for the Fraser Valley. Any response to that, or was that just the NDP throwing something out there?
Well, I think following their example and what they're doing with the Massey Tunnel and other missteps in terms of infrastructure planning, I would say don't count on it. The other thing is that even with their current projections, they're projecting a huge increase in the debt, and that does not include estimates for things like rapid rail to the valley, or what I think needs to happen, which is more lanes between here and Langley for transport trucks and a major part of our economy.
Being, ironically, as we tape this, a Welfare Wednesday, and Chilliwack has a downtown core that has some situations, that has some problems. Say, full case scenario, you become the new MLA. Is there enough clout to say, look, we need some help in Chilliwack, or is it still the focus to the Metro Vancouver area, to Metro Victoria first?
Well, I think the housing issues that we face and homelessness is significant here. And I think it should drive us to be incredibly motivated. So what I want to do is work with the City Council and work with the downtown community and deal with a number of key issues. Affordable housing is one. So that means strong advocacy with BC Housing and CMHC and working with the city to get affordable housing in here. We have a considerable lack of addiction resources here, and addiction and mental illness are two of the main drivers in homelessness. So we need to get on with it and work with Fraser Health to get resources identified in this community, not in Abbotsford, not in Maple Ridge, and that goes all the way from detox all the way to a full service recovery services here in Chilliwack, and we just don't have that. And our mental health system, I could spend some time on that, but the fact of the matter is that most people with mental illness can live effectively in the community if you have the proper supports, but we do not have those proper supports in our community. So I think we need to adopt a don't take no for an answer approach, and we need to go get it done. It doesn't matter if it's if we're competing against another community. We're here to represent our community.
Which brings up another thing when it comes to Chilliwack's General Hospital. Plenty of complaints that it is just too small for the community. Is there enough political will that you feel pressure can be put on Victoria, whether or not you form the next government, whether you're there, that we can get an improvement? I mean, we're looking at Surrey and their new hospital. Again, the recent budget with various care centers from Abbotsford all the way into the interior, and Chilliwack was not mentioned.
Absolutely, and I'm actually really concerned about the state of healthcare in Chilliwack. So we now have 25,000 people without a doctor. Because we have been unable to get specialists, we've had closures in maternity in one of the fastest growing communities in British Columbia. We don't have these adequate addiction or other services here. And the plant, the hospital itself, a lot of it goes back to the 50s. So what I would do is I would work with cities, I would work with the FERD, and even the Upper Fraser Valley, because we have a lot of people in everywhere from Agassiz to Hope that rely on us in Chilliwack for services. And we just don't, with our pressure, and with the fact that we know we're the fastest growing large center in all of British Columbia, this situation is just going to get worse. So healthcare is actually my number one priority in terms of getting things done and moving the dial on this issue.
John Martin's slogan has always been Chilliwack punches above its weight. Have you got your own battle cry now?
I do not have a tagline other than maybe get it done. I'm not a... I wouldn't want to be accused of having flowery speeches. I'd rather be recognized for what I got done on the ground. And that's what I'm going to focus on, and focus on the priorities of the city and rolling up sleeves and getting practical things done for Chilliwack, because we deserve it. I mean, one of the issues that I just have thought a lot about is we fundraised our own emergency board. That did not come from Fraser Health. People like Eldon Unger and John Janzen were out there, and they raised $5 million out of private money. So now it's time that we stand up and say this is not good enough, and let's get going.
With the situation here, with you going after the nomination, the situation in Abbotsford, any hint that you have heard that we could be going to the polls in 2 months, 6 months, by the end of 2020?
Well, it's a minority government. A minority government seldom actually survive their entire term. If I was going to call it right now, I'd say that there's a dead heat in the polls. So that generally doesn't indicate an immediate election. But one of the reasons that I'm out there pounding the pavement is I want to get these 400 memberships so whenever the party calls the nomination, I'm ready for it. Because those individuals come to a nomination meeting, they vote, and the person who gets the most votes is the successful candidate.
Any word or a hint of when that nomination might be? Spring, summer, fall?
I have no idea. Nobody has mentioned anything to me. What I do know is that BC Liberal Party has put a lot of emphasis on the 12 or 13 unheld ridings, particularly ones that were really close. So you'll notice that Cheryl Ashley was nominated in Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows. The BC Liberals lost that by a couple of thousand votes. And of course, Abbotsford South was an incredibly amazing race. They sold 3,700 memberships there. It was very active. 1,600 people showed up to vote. And so I think the next one is Stikine. But I think we'll probably see the focus on the rest of those unheld ridings, and then they will start working on other parts. But I have no indication from the party at all as to a timeline.
Any word on, do you know how many memberships John Martin has sold, or is he keeping that number quiet?
You know, you'd have to talk to him about that. I think that information is released at their annual general meeting, but that would be his information to tell you.
This should be a rather interesting 2020 with Diane Janzen, Don Lehn, chillTV.